Let's move on to, or back to, the horror of Bondi and the terrorist attack that happened at Bondi. It happened from that bridge, that small footbridge over Anderson Park. Now, what should happen to that bridge? I mean, should it be retained? Should it become a memorial to the victims? Is there a risk that if it's retained, it will be something which will be a constant reminder of the terrorist attack and the awful things that happened? Chris Minns thinks it should go. The local council is going to debate it. Do we keep the bridge or get rid of it?
I don't think there's any real reason to hold on to something that is obviously going to cause so much trauma to people who will forever associate it with what happened that day. Imagine being a Jewish Bondi resident, having to walk over it, just to get to the beach every time you want to. Yeah. I'm not aware of it having any particular kind of heritage value.
It's apparently
the two bridges, there's two that go over for the car parks, are both apparently coming to the end of their life anyway. But I do think it's important, whatever there is some sort of memorial. I think, you can never forget what happened. And I think having something that is a visual, something to remember those that lost their lives or were injured during that pogrom, I think is important. But whether it's structurally sound to stay, it is just a concrete bridge.
Yeah, and the important thing is the local council is going to be talking to the Jewish community because it's their input, their opinion
Jewish,
that really matters.
So I think there'll be a very good representation there. I'm sure will do an excellent job.
Yes, we will. Someone else who's doing an excellent job, I'm sure you'll agree, is the Victorian Premier Jacinta Allan, although apparently not all her constituents think so. We all know, of course, that Victoria, my old home state, was ravaged by bushfires in recent days, and there have been questions raised about whether the CFA which is their local voluntary country fire authority, like the RFS we have here, whether it has been adequately supplied. And there have been people in the volunteer service plus the opposition have been poring over the budget and saying, look, you've actually cut our budget and cut our resources in real terms. Now, Jacinta Allan has, of course, denied that, but that has not stopped her from being met with a very fierce reception when she went to tour the bushfire-affected areas recently. Have a look.
Shame on you, Premier. How are you today? I'm really bad, as everybody else, but shame on you, and government. For what you've done to cause this situation, and what you're doing to not help it now. Hello, how are you? Shame on you!
So there you go. Obviously, there she's heading for the ministerial car. I've got to say, as with Scott Morrison in 2019, I do not like, even from people, and even as we saw with Anthony Albanese at the memorial service, even with people who I know have suffered a huge amount of trauma and who are extremely angry, I don't like the idea of booing or screaming at our political leaders in times of crisis. I think it is time that we have to pull together as a nation. I didn't like it when it happened at Scott Morrison. I don't like having it now. And I've got no particular love for Jacinta Allan. I've been incredibly critical of her. Got no love for her predecessor either. But
yeah, this is where we disagree. You're on the anti-booing crowd. I'm on the booing crowd. I'm really happy to boo politicians who are doing the wrong thing by us and who are letting us down. Now, as I read the story, there are fire trucks in Victoria that have actually burst into flames. They have actually burnt. The equipment, the trucks are too old and are not safe. And according to one newspaper report, there was actually a directive that came out from the head of the CFA fairly early in this current bushfire season in December, saying do not take the trucks into grass fires because it's just too dangerous. Our trucks are not going to stand up to it. Well, good modern fire trucks do. They don't have good modern fire trucks. They are not well equipped. And why? Because the Victorian government's got no money. Therefore, it cannot properly equip them. It cannot do what it should do to keep the people of Victoria safe. This is the long-term pain that's been caused by Victorian Labor governments running the place down economically and not having the money to spend to look after their people.
Look, and I think this is where the frustration has boiled over. And in Victoria, I can't believe they're just booing. I mean, the way that state's been run and the way that it's been run into the ground across the board, I can't believe it's just the booing that's going on and that people aren't marching in the street. But we know that there is basically no effective opposition in Victoria, that, you know, Jacinta Allan looks like she could possibly win an election this year. I mean, it is breathtaking what's happening in Victoria. And at the end of the day, the Victorian population need to say, well, we keep voting for these mugs, and if they won't replace our fire trucks and they won't replace anything else, and they're wasting all this money on all these other projects that are never going to go anywhere, or paying $1 billion to not build a road, but we keep voting for them, perhaps we deserve what we get, because this is just getting beyond a joke.
And it's one thing after another, it's also their education system, isn't it?
The Victorian public education system has now become one of the most expensive in the country, or the most expensive in the country. So we're talking about sending your kids to public school. We're not talking about sending them to the independent school or the Catholic school. This is what should be part of every child's right, to go to school and get an education. Yet if you're in Melbourne, the public school system, but it will now cost families over $120,000 to send their children through kinder to year 12 in Victoria. I mean, that is just an astronomical amount of money for what should be public education. But again, when you look at Victoria, there's no money for anything. So you can imagine that parents are having to send and contribute absolutely every single thing that's being used in the classroom for teachers to be able to teach. And I mean, no wonder we've got results going backwards and a decline in standards and problems with discipline in the classroom. And when there's no money, there's not enough teachers, there's not enough resources being put in for these kids to receive any sort of decent education. And parents are doing it tough. Cost of living crisis, they can't afford the energy bills, they can't afford the groceries on the table, and now they're being whacked with an increase in education.
The parents have to pay for every exercise book, every pen, every pencil, everything.